If you feel busy but not fulfilled, productive but exhausted, this episode will show you why your calendar may be the real problem and how to realign it with what actually matters to you. Hey, y'all, I'm your host, Courtney Cecil, and welcome back to another episode of the Life Management System. But before we dive in, I have a little bit of a confession. So I'm about to re-air episode 20. But y'all, I'm reusing it on purpose because working smarter, not harder, is kind of my thing, right? So, more importantly, though, when I think about this episode, I still feel like it's deeply relevant because we have access to a ton of organizational tools now. If you think about things like productivity tools and apps, shared calendars, flex work schedules for those of us that are fortunate enough to have them, color coded this, color coded that, we have access to a lot. Yet, the majority of people I talk to are still very overwhelmed. And it's probably not going to surprise you to hear that 9 times out of 10, the working moms I'm just in conversations with say that the calendar is quietly working against them. Like the calendar is the culprit. So, since I originally aired this episode, it was actually a year ago, at the beginning of the year last year, I've coached a lot of working moms. And in this past year, the common practice that I have with them is I'm going to audit your calendar because so often we're just too close to the problem to see it. And the calendar is often the fastest way for you to actually have your time drained, your energy drained, your focus is distracted. And most importantly, it's also the place where there tends to be friction around how we're actually spending those times versus what it is that we value most and what it is we actually prioritize doing. So it's in the spirit of that that I conduct these audits with my clients. Not all of them, but most of them take me up on that offer because it is one of the fastest ways for them to get clarity on what all is being drained. But here's what I've actually learned from that process. When your calendar isn't intentional, that's when you end up reacting all day long, reacting, reacting, reacting. And what you're doing then is you're putting other people's priorities first, not your own. And then over time, what's going to happen? You're going to resent whoever you're engaging with. Like that resentment starts to build. It builds at work, it builds at home, and it even starts to build against yourself. And that's just really unfortunate. So that's why I believe that calendar hygiene is still a highly relevant topic. And it's not because I think it's the key to being more productive and squeezing more in. Yeah, of course, like it can happen. But more than anything, it's about being intentional with the time you actually have. So that way you have proper boundaries built in and you're actually protecting what matters most. Because again, boundaries are all about a, it's like a fence that you get to open and close to protect what it is that you care about. Because your life actually should reflect what you value, not just your obligations, not just what your boss or your parents or your children believe are priorities, but what you actually believe are your priorities. So I'm having this conversation now because I believe, as with many of you, that New Year's is a great time and a great practice for us to treat the year like a blank slate. And I'm okay with that. It sounds cliche, but here's the thing. Many of us at the start of the new year are coming from a time away from work where we're feeling a little bit more grounded. We have a completely refreshed mind, and oftentimes actually just higher levels of commitment to what it is that we care about and what it is we truly value. So it's a very natural time to reflect, to recalibrate and reset. So the word that word re is so intentional in my vocabulary. Actually, while I have you, it's actually the spirit behind my retreat. So the retreat, it's capital R, capital E. It is my luxury women's weekend that's coming up at the beginning of February in West Palm Beach. But that word re is intentional because I designed it for the high achieving women who need to pour into themselves, to be able to reflect, to be able to recalibrate, to be able to reset. So if you're hearing that and thinking, gosh, I could totally use a weekend to escape it all and pour into myself at, by the way, a 5-star oceanfront resort and spa. Consider this the universe's sign. I'm going to drop the link in the show notes for you to be able to learn more about it and access it. And even if this is not your year, let me know and I'll keep you on the short list for us next year. Because just like we're doing at the retreat, I use the new year as an opportunity to challenge the status quo because I don't want inertia being the reason I'm carrying old baggage from 2025 into my new season. But I also use it as an opportunity to validate that my priorities are sufficiently being represented and protected. So before I get into a very, very tactical episode, so like if you want the dirt on what you need to be doing, you're going to hear it there. But before we get into that, I want you to hear this. If prioritizing yourself feels selfish, that's not a calendar problem, friend. It's the byproduct of years of conditioning, particularly on women. And your calendar is one of the very first places that we start undoing that trap. So by the end of this episode, you'll know what to remove, what to protect, and what needs to be put back into your calendar, starting with you. So let's get into it. So today we're going to talk about calendar hygiene and how managing it intentionally can help you prioritize yourself. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, first of all, please join me there at Working Moms Movement. But inside my DMs, I am so intentional about asking women what their biggest challenges are as a working mom. And you probably won't be surprised if you're listening to this, that one of the most common themes is that most working moms don't prioritize themselves. No surprise, right? So while there are, of course, many variables that contribute to if that feels like you, why you might not be improving how much you're actually able to prioritize yourself, one of the ways that you can do that, and one of the more, probably the most foundational way, is by organizing your calendar to support your goal. So many people will say, if it's not on my calendar, it's not getting done. Well, guess what, friends? That means prioritizing you as well. So, as cliche as it is, I'm a big believer in leveraging the new year as a complete blank slate. Like 100% okay with that. If that's what it takes to just completely reset, I'm all about it. So I think of it as the natural time to reflect. Okay, how did last year go? How's the past 5 years gone? What do I need to be doing? Then recalibrate my plans. So call a timeout and say, you know what, this didn't serve me, or I want more of this or less of that, or whatever it may be. So that recalibration, and then reset. So resetting being, hey, we're gonna push the do-over button, and we're gonna tackle this in a completely different way. So I use my New Year's every single year as an opportunity to wipe the slate clean and then challenge whatever the status quo is going into it, because the last thing I want is inertia to be the reason I'm bringing baggage into the new year, because so often we have problems of just letting whatever we have been doing, whatever habits we already have in place, to follow us forward, and that often doesn't serve us. So inside this episode, I'm going to get really tactical about the things that you need to be challenging at the start of each new year, and then what you can do to get organized as you go into this next year. So first, I want you, if you are in a relationship, I want you to start with a planning retreat with your partner. And if you're a single mom, or if maybe there are other listeners out there, if so, welcome. But if you're single, I want you thinking about the same thing too. But the point is, it's so important to be aligned with your partner and to move forward as a family unit, because so often it is that lack of alignment that continues to pull you in different directions, both emotionally and physically. So don't overthink this. Like, if you want to make it a little bit more fun, treat it as a retreat. Go out on a date night and have this conversation. Put the kids to bed and share a bottle of wine. Whatever it takes for you to just carve out some time with your partner to reflect, or for yourself to reflect. But don't overthink it. This doesn't have to be like some big grand gesture, but I want you focusing on those big picture growth goals and the big picture investments that you want to make in the next year. And when I say investments, remember, investment is anything that requires energy, or anything that requires time, or anything that requires money. All three of those are resources that are not endless. So you have to be very intentional with how you allocate those three resources. So I want you thinking, okay, what are my growth goals? And then what are my investment goals? And then I want you thinking about these 5 teaser questions that will help you align on those basics. And then we're going to get into the calendar stuff, like the really tactical calendar stuff. And by the way, you can go a lot bigger than these 5 questions, but these are the ones that I think will really set you up to be more tactical and really not overanalyze the exercise. Okay, first question. What did not serve you this past year? So think about the routines that you had, think about the habits that you had, think about the relationships and the people you let into your life. And I want you thinking about this as an individual, as a couple, and as a family. Like even the exposure to your kids, that all matters. So routines, habits, and relationships, which did not serve you last year. Number 2, what changes might you need to make regarding childcare? So, as your kids age, they're going to have very different needs. And going into the start of the year, knowing exactly what you should anticipate for the summer, especially will help. Like when you have school age kids, or if your kids are in preschool or whatever it may be. So, what changes do you need to make to childcare, including summer plans for any school age kids? 3, what type of vacations are you in a position to plan for? Or do you need to dream about or save for or plan around or whatever it may be? So that kind of the big chunks of time off. And to be clear, vacation doesn't have to be something really luxurious. It can truly be having a staycation at a friend's house and have, we do a lot of family sleepovers because they're so much fun to let the kids go down early, the parents stay up and play board games or whatever. So please don't misread the word vacation as meaning I need to be like gallivanting the world or having my butt on a beach. No, a vacation is any time you are purposely carving out time for yourself to unwind. You can take hikes. You can go to a local pool. There's a lot of things that you can do that are low to no cost and still give you time as a family to relax and recharge. Okay, 4, what major projects are you hoping to take on as a family? So think about things like house investments. So my husband and Richard and I just redid our office. It was very important to me now that I have 2 jobs between working moms movement and my corporate job that I needed a better setup to be able to kind of dual hat there. And to be productive and be able to give both of them the energy that I really need to commit. In fact, if you are watching this on YouTube, you can see my office behind me. I am so pleased with how it's turned out. You can also see that I'm wearing my Virginia Tech sweatshirt right now and Virginia Tech earrings. We are about to go to the bowl game. Our bowl game, we are playing here in Charlotte. So anyway, I digress. But the point being, the decision to invest in re-outfitting our office was a very intentional decision. In fact, we tend to make investment decisions a full year in advance, so that way we know exactly how much we need to be saving based on whatever that goal is. Honestly, like it makes our savings intentional. It allows us to say, what do we want to do this? Or do we want to do that thing that we said we wanted to do? So think about the major projects you're hoping to invest on or hoping to take on as a family, this house investment or this office investment, or any big house investment. It takes time. It takes money. I kid you not. I worked with a Pottery Barn designer, and despite working with a designer, I was shocked at how consuming it was for me to get this office outfitted. New hobbies, that's another type of project. My husband is a big skier and he's very committed to getting our boys to ski. I'm not like I grew up skiing. I'm not quite sure that I'm as committed as him, even though I love it on the perfect weather day and I don't otherwise. But Richard is super invested in the boys learning to ski. So he is therefore willing to take them and, do whatever it is that he needs to do to make sure that that reality happens. So those type of hobby projects should be accounted for as well when you dream up your next year. And the last thing, what growth goals do each of you have, you and your partner? So think about your career goals and what you're trying to do in the next 1 to 3 years, big picture from a career perspective. Think about the life skills that you need. Things like, I remember when I was pregnant, like CPR skill was a big one. Whatever it is that you need to elevate your general capabilities, like that's big stuff. Any hobbies you have, those are big things. So what growth goals do you have? And then what types of resources are required to make that happen? And are you actually willing to make it happen? So as an example, my youngest, if he was to say one of his growth goals, it would be soccer every single time. He loves soccer and he's getting more and more obsessed with it. In order for him to grow at soccer, we as a couple need to decide, are we willing to make the investment in his experience at club level? Because club is more expensive. It requires a whole lot of time and a whole lot of commitment by us. Or are we just going to be okay with rec league this year? And my point of view is very, very clear cut. At this point in his own maturity, I am fine staying in the rec league. And I'm absolutely not willing to make that investment in club soccer because he is not demonstrating that level of investment at home. So I'm going to match him where he is. So part of this growth goal exercise is also just acknowledging reality and saying, you know what, that's a wish list item, or no, I'm willing to go all in on this thing. And here's what it's going to require to make it happen. So if I was to play off that club soccer example, well, heck, now if I was to do that, I know I need to clear most of our calendars every single weekend. And we need to be okay saying we're not going to go to Virginia Tech for ball games. We are not going to take any other vacations. We are not going to be able to commit to basketball or flag football for him because he has to go all in on that thing. So it helps us get more cemented in the decisions that we make. So those are 5 questions I want you thinking through that will help you reset your mental state and what it is that you are hoping to create time for or commit to this upcoming year. And if I should say, I want to call a timeout and say that if going through this exercise left you in a place where you're feeling stressed or anxious, I want you considering looking up an Apollo wearable. So an Apollo, it's a neuro tool. And I'm going to drop this in the show notes, by the way. I talk about it a lot because I use it for sleep. I used to have incredibly bad sleep anxiety. I would not be able to, I could not fall asleep. I could not stay asleep. And I am a huge, huge fan of the Apollo Neuro. Again, I'll drop it in the show notes, or you can go to apolloneuro.com/Courtney Anderson. And by the way, I have a $60 off coupon if you want to give it a try. The code is Courtney4. But that tool essentially sends vibrations to your brain, and it's the same consistent pattern, and it trains your brain that, hey, this situation's okay. This is what you need to be doing at this time, body. So it's a really good tool for both stress, anxiety, and sleep. Okay, so moving on then to the really tactical part of planning your calendar. So once you have clarity on what you need to let go of and what you need to lean into this upcoming year, it's time for you to organize your schedule. And I promise that this advanced planning will help you feel super in control so that you are actually going into the new year with your eyes wide open. So here are the things that I want you thinking about to help get ahead. 1, I want you overlaying your school calendar and the company holiday calendar and that sort of thing onto your personal one right now. Like that's the most basic thing. So that way you already know when the kids are going to get out, or you already know that you have a long weekend with your company. Like I'm in banking now, and we get off all the small holidays, which I never did before. So it helps me knowing that those are coming up. So I'm not wasting them and actually able to do something intentional with my time there. And by the way, the kids aren't always off on them. So that's fun too. Sometimes they have school. Okay, the second thing I want you thinking about is I want you inputting other key dates that you need to account for, and you cannot afford to let your slip your mind. Your nieces and nephews' birthdays, your favorite sports team schedules, your anniversary, like, anything like that that you think you're never going to forget. You might not actually forget it, but it sure does help when you're in the thick of planning to pull up the calendar and be like, oh, you know what? That's not really a good week because that is my best friend's birthday. And we have, and that you have a standing ritual of going out to dinner or whatever it may be. Like you might know it intellectually, but it sure helps when you see all that stuff written down in your calendar. It's just releasing some of that mental load. It's also the perfect time for you to just block off anything that you traditionally take off. So as an example, my husband and I always run a boat on our lake because we live I looked out the window like you would actually be able to see what I'm seeing. Clearly you can't. So we live across the road from the lake, like in a very small lake community called Mountain Island Lake in Charlotte. And we're so blessed that we're able to like quite literally walk across our little neighborhood road, and we're able to drop in the paddle boards and that sort of thing. But we don't own a boat. We're not lakefront. It was not something we prioritized paying for when we were making decisions on buying our lot. So we run a boat every single anniversary, and it is our tradition. We love it. It's just so peaceful. Our anniversary is July 3rd. So we are normally out in the water before other people get out for July 4th, and it is so much fun. So I'm going to block that day now. My company now that I work for does not give us the day after Thanksgiving. It does not give us Christmas Eve. Like those are holidays that I absolutely prioritize spending with family. So I'm going to block those now. Like go ahead and block anything like that that you know you need to commit to. Okay. Third, I want you creating time blocks for some of the things that you do on a day-to-day basis. So things like working out, things like your commute, things like self-care. So you are putting yourself first, as Stephen Covey says, like putting first things first. So I, from now until forever, have a Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday appointment blocked on my calendar because that's when I work out with my trainer. And if something happens to her and I'm not able to do that, that's a standing commitment that I am going to continue honoring. I have an hour and I'm going to get after it really hard 3 days a week. So that's the kind of thing I go ahead and block on my calendar. I also have the commuting time on the days that I'm in the office that I need to go pick up the boys. Like that's another calendar block I already have on there. So go ahead and add all those calendar blocks for this year. Next, I want you scheduling and booking vacations. I want you thinking about, again, it doesn't have to be anything luxurious. It can be you at home deciding you're going to go on a hike. Do whatever it is that you based on where it is that you live. The point is not what you're doing or where it is. It's that you're actually thinking about it and making sure it happens. I also want you thinking about dog walkers and anything else you might need to book alongside that to make that time off happen. And also think about, by the way, I want you thinking about your holiday schedule as well. Like, do you, as an example, we will not be going out of town this Easter because I am taking my belated 40th birthday trip to Portugal then. But my in-laws will be here with the boys. My parents are helping watch the boys. So we know we're going to be home. And then it made it easy for me to be like, well, you know what? Next Easter, maybe we go to our in-laws. So whatever it may be, like we think about that stuff in advance because it allows us to maximize our time with whatever we're doing around it and plan around it. I'm a big believer that if you prioritize something, you'll figure out how to make it happen. I have a lot of people in my life that are like, we can't commit because we don't know what we're going to be doing in 4 or 5 months. No, you don't know what you're going to be doing in 4 or 5 months because you're not willing to commit it, which tells me you're not prioritizing it. Like it's a hot button for me. Okay, fifth, I want you auditing your calendar for events that will require a babysitter. And then I want you booking it. So think about things like concerts and ball games and friends' birthday celebrations or your company parties or that sort of thing. Like go ahead and get a babysitter penciled in now. That way you've got them secured. And I hate to admit this, but it's also time for summer camps. Like now is the time that they will start filling up. Go ahead and get ahead of that. The next thing I want you thinking about is wellness visits, dentist visits, whatever it may be for the entire family. Because by scheduling them out, you get to have those coveted first of the morning appointments or right after lunch breaks appointments, because that is going to leave you wasting less time. Next, this is a big one too. Like, this is a big self-care thing. I want you setting reoccurring calls with your girlfriends, your old colleagues, whatever it may be, during your commute. So every single week, normally once or twice a week, I have a connection with somebody I value. It is either a 30, 45-minute or an hour call, depending on who it is, depending on the depth of the relationship. Sometimes they are once a month, sometimes they are every other week, sometimes they are every 6 weeks. The point is, it doesn't matter. You get creative based on the relationship and what it is that you need of that relationship. But I want you scheduling time with those relationships now. If you work them into your commutes, it is a standing meeting for you both. You're going to make it happen. Ninth on this list, I want you setting task reminders for any items that you need to get out of your brain. Reordering prescriptions, checking into flights, scheduling mulch deliveries, scheduling holiday pictures, like any of that stuff. Put it on there now. It can become a repeating schedule that you can do it this year and then just kick that reminder out for the next year. That way you don't have to think about it next year either. And then 10th and last on this list, I want you ensuring that all of the relevant entries that your partner needs to know about are shared with their calendar, either on their direct calendar, on a family calendar, whatever it may be, whatever system you have. That's a conversation for another day. But hopefully, if you do those 10 things, you will be going into this calendar year completely in control of your schedule. But the one and most important thing that I have not caught out until now is, for the love of all things, go through your calendar, cleanse it of any recurring old calls or routines that no longer serve you. So if you have one-on-ones that you don't need to have anymore, if you have team calls that you don't need to have anymore, or they're not productive, like, those things should be canceled and declined. Do not go into the new year assuming same as last year. So Sally, I always say Sally's a bitch. Same as last year. We don't need Sally. We need you thinking about what you need to prioritize right now. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up. It's coming to a close. So thank you for being on this journey with me. If you are very interested in continuing creating more healthy habits and healthy routines for yourself, I've got a guide just for that. And I'll drop this in the show notes. It's www.workingmomsmovement.com/healthy-habits. But in this, I include snack-sized habits that you can put into place to slowly improve big parts of your life. So you don't want to take off a whole animal at once. That's too overwhelming. That's not going to stick. But if you commit to small snack-sized habits, then you can slowly change things around. So I have categories on nutrition, fitness, wellness, hygiene, and mental health. So all of the things in that document are things I have actually done and introduced year after year after year. I always choose a snack-sized habit for myself at the start of the year. I think you're going to like what's in there. I've gotten great feedback on it. Or people are like, gosh, I would have never even thought of this. So all of this stuff is stuff I have done for myself and that you can commit to, mostly in about 5 extra minutes a day. But I promise it's stuff that's going to help. Okay, friends, thank you so much for being here. If you haven't already rated and review us, I would love that. Please subscribe so you're getting this podcast update every single week. But until next time, friends, if nobody's told you lately, you're doing a great job. You've got this, mama. If this episode made you realize your calendar isn't aligned with your values, watch episode 61 next. I share how childhood experiences often shape the values we protect, and it will connect a lot of dots for you. Enjoy.